Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're located today. Welcome to today's Scrum Pulse. Give folks a couple moments to trickle in. Okay. I'm Lindsay Velasina. I'm going to be your moderator today, and I am with Scrum.org. And today we have one of our professional Scrum trainers, Sam Adesoga, here, and he's going to talk to us about our product goals and how that can help us rethink portfolio management. So a very cool product focused session today, which is super exciting. And with that, I will ask you, Sam, to please advance the slide. Okay, so some very quick guidelines here. So you will notice that your microphone is muted. That is on purpose. And we will ask you, though, to please enter your questions into the Q&A panel. And by doing so, we'll be able to moderate those. If you have any technical questions, just add them into the chat, and I will moderate those there. I just want to keep the technical questions and the actual questions for Sam separate. So please do that. And this session is being recorded. So if you miss anything or have to jump, you'll be able to reference this later along with the slides. All right. So next slide, please. Very quickly about Scrum.org. We are the home of Scrum. We were founded by Ken Schwaber back in 2009. Our mission is to help people and teams solve complex problems, and we do so through our professional Scrum training, certification, and our ongoing learning opportunities. You will notice on the Scrum.org website, there are a lot of free opportunities to learn. So we invite you to check that out. There are a lot of great resources in our resource center and some great learning series in there, including several on product management and product ownership. So please feel free to check those out after the session. We always want you to continue your learning. We're glad to see that you're doing that by attending today. And I'll hand it over to you, Sam, to introduce yourself and get us started.
Right. Thank you very much, Lindsay. Hope you can hear me properly. Okay, great. Let's get started. So my name is Sam Adesoga. I'm a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org. When I'm not training, I work as an organizational agile coach, and I work through Value Hut Limited, which is an agile coaching consultancy. And we are based in London and in Lagos, Nigeria. All right, so we're going to be talking about rethinking portfolio management with product goals. So this is a topic that I have spent the last few months thinking about based on the work that I do. And I thought with the inclusion of product goals into the Scrum framework 2020, I thought, you know what, there are a few things that we could amend to the way we manage portfolio in organizations, and I'm going to try and share some of those ideas with you. Yeah, so let's dive into it. So what I'm going to try to describe here is what I've named traditional portfolio management, okay? And the way I define this is selection, prioritization, and control of an organization's programs and projects in line with its strategic objectives and capacity to deliver. So what this really means is, in an organization, you've got a lot of projects that are going on. Somehow you've got a portfolio management office, a project management office. And what they really do is look at all these projects and try to group them into portfolios so that it's easier to manage, right? So that it aligns to the strategic objectives for that particular organizations. And what I have done in the last few months is talking to friends and colleagues that work in this space to really understand what are we trying to solve for. using the traditional portfolio management. And some of the questions they pose to me is, one, we want to know if we've got enough resources, people, they mean by that, right? For every project. They want to know, have we got enough budget for each project? Or even still, are we overspending on that project? Is it taking longer? Has there been new requirements that we need to take into account? All right. Also, within each portfolio, they want to check if the priorities of this project is right within each portfolio. And then sometimes someone said to me, we even try and help this project to figure out, is the priorities done correctly? I got those 4 questions. And what comes to my mind is, if you look at resourcing, budgets, what I kept asking these people is, how much of this can we predict or do we know upfront? Right? And then this person said, you know what? We also try to almost juggle these 3 things, the BAU activities in the organization, change initiatives, and then ultimately it's about how do we maximize return on investment. So they're answering questions, how do we distribute the budget we've got across these projects? And you've got a PMO type office that looks after that. And I've gone on the APM website as well to see, some of these materials and what are we trying to do here. And there are 4 main steps in traditional portfolio management. It could differ in your organization, but there are 4 steps that it goes through. The first one is selection and strategy. This is where the PMO people would meet with the management of the organization to understand what's the overarching strategy for this year, for this quarter, what that may be. And then look into the projects that have been highlighted for that current fiscal year or quarter and start selecting this project based on what they think, as it aligns to that strategy. Okay, then there's a lot of analysis done on this project in these portfolios and organizing, trying to prioritize these projects. This where the PMO people hopefully maybe start speaking to SMEs across the organization, trying to get some input, and then they decide those are the portfolios we've got, and these are the projects that fit within this portfolio. All right. Then the next thing is kickoff and management. And the way it was defined is this is where these projects are kicked off. We start looking for people, bringing people to the work, all right? Which is we've got this backlog of work that we want to deliver in our organizations. Now let's go find the right people that will work on it. So that's where the resourcing aspect comes in. And then usually there would be some form of overarching governance, how you're going to deal with releases, how you're going to deal with your dependencies, and the portfolio management office tend to be that coordination bit between these different projects or programs as it may be. And then the idea is that at the end, at some point, you want to review and adapt the way investment is done. So I was told, like, for instance, people leave a particular project, then you might want to reassign them to a new project. And one of the things that came across to me very, very clearly in having this conversation and what I've seen is that pretty much we are managing scope, time, and cost. That's what we're managing, right? And we refer to this as outputs of the project. The scope, a backlog of work, predetermined. Time, how long it's going to take. Cost, how much do we want to spend on this project? And the question I've asked people is, for this triangle, how much control have you got on these factors, the scope, the cost, the time? Okay. And even said, well, we have to actually measure variances every quarter, every month, and present that. And based on that, we keep making decisions to keep shuffling the portfolio. Okay. And that says a lot about how much we do not know, especially when you are working in a complex environment where there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of unknowns. All right. And what I would like to show you next, and to be honest, that's just portfolio management. From my understanding, and then I would like to show you how could you start managing your portfolio using an empirical way of management. All right. This onion, which I show on the diagram right now, we teach that in our professional Scrum product owner class. And I want to use that to explain to you how I see products. We're talking about product goals here. But before we talk about product goals, let's talk about what products are and how do they come about. All right. Usually, every organization would have a vision, 5 years, 10 years, talking about what's the big idea? What do you want to contribute to the world, right? And within that, you've got a business strategy, they would have that, which explains how that vision will materialize, how that vision will be brought to life. And usually, this is where you want to start defining the products. Okay, the business strategy looks into the problems you want to solve, and then you start looking at the vehicle you're going to use to deliver that value, to your customers, to the market, and that will be product. For a small organization, you probably have one product. But as the company grows, you have multiple products. I always think about Facebook. Facebook many, many years ago was probably one product because it was small. Today, I'm pretty sure they've got the communities, they've got the ads, they've got the Instagram, different products that still all align to the overall vision for the organization. So if you think about this product vision, imagine you have multiple products in the organization, each one of them with its own strategy, with its own vision. And then you then have the strategy, which is how do we get this product to the markets? How do we ensure that this product, get to a product market fit? All right. What's the pricing and all that? Go into the strategy. And then you go into your value and solution delivery. That's where, the Scrum team starts executing on the ideas, the goals in the backlog. And then you keep validating. And you see, I've put in those arrows in there because the truth is, from the business strategy, the product vision, there will be factors that influences and that will change and evolve over time. So the idea is that as you start delivering on your products, that would impact the direction for your strategy. That would impact the product vision. That might change. New technology. What does the market want from your product? So it's not a one-directional thing, which you normally see in a traditional organization. Usually you find is one direction. You've been given, think about this structure here, you've been given a pot of work, we call them statement of work, which has been decided has to be worked on, and then the teams have to go build. But in this instance, the work being done by the teams as they're building, delivering, being validated will keep influencing the strategy, would influence the vision. And that's the difference. And what we're trying to talk about here is about empiricism, a term I'm going to explain to you. In the Scrum Guide, it defines as such. It asserts that knowledge comes from experience and making decision based on what is observed. All right? Which means at each level, you want to try to adapt your strategy, your vision, your product strategy based on what the experience of delivering that product into the market. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have some questions that are starting to come in. This first one here from Fortune asks, how can we shift the traditional annual funding process for projects over to a product friendly, I don't know why I said family, product friendly financing? How do we tell finance, the PMO, and executives?
Okay, great question. But what I would like to do with that question is let's leave it towards the end.
Okay.
Because as I talk more about how governance is being done in this new model, then hopefully I'll talk about the funding as well. But I talk about that towards the end. All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
There's another one here. What is your advice when an organization, essentially leaders who think agile is as a way to be able to adapt as they go, however, without realizing a minimum baseline in place, also known as dependencies, not properly identified, or identified but not thought through in terms of how the same need
Sorry, let me, it's
to be
quite
indirect.
lengthy. One
It is
seven.
lengthy. You can look at it in the Q&A. I'll drop it in
Okay,
the
all right.
chat
I see
as
that.
well.
Okay, dependencies not identified, not thought through. Okay, let's keep talking about this, right? Because I think both questions all relate to what is a product.
Right.
Yeah. When we define product properly, then one of the goals we look at when defining product is reducing dependencies. When you really map out what are your product and organization, you want to reduce dependencies as much as possible. And every product should almost stand alone, almost stand alone. And the team as well are empowered to make decision on that product. While we'll talk about those two questions, they are slightly, they are related in a little bit. Okay. So now I'm trying to go deeper a little bit into the business strategy, the product vision, and the product strategy. Those three layers. And let's look into how does that look like in a product world. All right. I searched online for a lot of definitions for strategy, and there are so many definitions for strategy. But I found this particular definition that I really liked, and it resonated with me a lot from a gentleman called Roger Martin, former Dean, Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. All right. And he defines strategy as an integrated set of choices that positions an organization in markets that enables them to win. An integrated set of choices that positions an organization in a market and that enables that organization to win in those markets. And there are three main questions. It could be bigger than this, but there are the three main questions that I pulled out from this definition. What market should we play in? How should we differentiate ourselves? And what capabilities do we need? Right? What markets should we play in? How do we differentiate ourselves? And what capabilities do we need? And what I try to show here in my mind, what capabilities refers to the products that that organization is offering to its customers, to the users. So capabilities in my mind talks about the products, the vehicle for delivering value. I'm hoping everyone agrees that we all want to deliver value to our customers, right? That's how organizations make money and remain profitable over many, many, many years. Okay. So in my mind, the capabilities, what capabilities do we need to help us deliver value in those markets that we have decided to play in? And what I tried to show here was this could be different products. I talked about when you're a small organization, a startup, probably one product. Then as the organization grows, you now have multiple products, serving different needs, maybe cross-selling different clients. And organizations would usually group their products into portfolios, maybe to serve a specific group of clients. So for instance, you could have products that are tailored to the shipping industry, for instance. I've seen that before. And you've got a suite of products that are built for that industry. That could be a portfolio. And it's because it's easier to then market and cross-sell and offer them solutions that deals with the entire value chain in that industry. That's one of the reasons why you have portfolios in the organization. All right? And then within your portfolio, one of the first thing you want to try and do as an organization is to classify the products in those portfolios. So within the organization, you have many products, but you want to classify the product in those portfolios. All right. And it will be in one of four categories. There's so many frameworks out there, but I like the BCG matrix very much because it also ties into some of the measures that we use to determine what value your product currently delivers and what are the gaps in value, what are the unrealized value in the market. And I'll talk about that very quickly. All right. So the BCG matrix, very quickly, is a chart plotted along two axes, market growth and market share. And I'll start with products that are classified as to be in the introduction phase. Okay, these are products that have a low market share, new experiments that you are conducting in your organization, but the market is very, very, very healthy. Look at in the AI space now, there's a lot of language models being products in that space, right? So the market is healthy, and in your organization, just beginning to try and run experiments in that market. Those are introduction products. The next one is growth products. These are products that you already amassed a good market share, in that market, and the market is healthy. All right. For both of these products in this classification for introduction and growth, these are products that the unrealized value is high potentially. So the introduction is where you're starting experiment, you want to really run quick experiment, get a product to market fit very quickly, and then it goes from introduction to growth. All right. The growth is you're good. You've got a good, healthy share of the market. The market is healthy. There's a lot of growth in the market. You want to keep satisfying your users. Probably got a lot of competition in the market as well. All right. So those two products, those two categories of products are the ones I want to really spend time talking about today, where there's a lot of unrealized value in the markets. And you want to run experiments, you want to get to your customers quicker, you want to give value to your customer to remain relevant in those markets. Okay, and I'll pause there for a bit and look at where the unrealized value is low, seemingly low, right? You've got the mature products. These are cash cows, right? You've been in the market for so many years. You've got a lot of customers. They love you, and it's just mature. You're not doing very much to those products anymore. You want to milk those products, optimize for getting as much profit from them, and use that to build maybe your growth and your introduction products. And decline, the growth is low. You have a low share. Maybe they are failed experiments, is a market that people are moving away from. So that one you want to, as much as possible, liquidate and stop wasting money on them overall. So that's sort of how you want to classify your products in those portfolio. And we're going to now go into the products in introduction and in the growth classification. How do you then manage with those products? How do you build on those products? How do you keep those products relevant to your customers? All right. I talked a lot about unrealized value just as a point of reference. At Scrum.org, we've got these evidence-based management value measures, and I'm talking more about the unrealized value at the top left corner, where you're checking the market share or you're measuring the customer or the user satisfaction gap. Those metrics can help you decide when you plot that on the BCG. What is it now? On the BCG matrix, right? Which product has got a lot more potential to give value to your customers? All right. And I'll leave that into the slides for you guys to spend some time to look into that. Now let's talk about goals. All right. As I described earlier, the product goal was included into the Scrum Framework 2020. And the Scrum Guide describes that as a future state of the product, which can serve as a target for the Scrum team to plan against. And oftentimes I get asked, who creates the product goal? That's the product owner for the product. So talk about products now, right? Now, the product owner usually would have a series of objectives that they want to deliver. So imagine, let's go back one level. You've got your products, which are meant to help deliver the strategy for the organization, right? Now, the product owner would, an expert in that product space, in that market, a set of objectives, which is short to medium term to plan against. And they are objectives. And what I like to see is a roadmap of objectives that shows alternatives. The objectives or the goal is a target. Okay, it's a target to work towards, to try to deliver. It doesn't mean that you always deliver it, but we learn from it. Okay, so if you look at this diagram here, you've got an objective there. And what the product owner will be doing is having some assumptions that if we can deliver this product goal, then maybe that might be the next product goal or objective that we go for. Or if we do not deliver that, then maybe we go for that objective. Those sort of alternatives are there as hypotheses for that product. And that's the way I see equivalent of timelines, right? Which is we're going to try and target this objective. If we do not deliver that, then we try something else. All right. And then I've seen a lot of product teams try to use OKRs, which I love, by the way, as a separate thing from product goals. And what I'm saying here is that we use OKRs to describe our product goals. Okay, what's OKR? For people that are not familiar with it, it's a collaborative goal setting tool used by teams and individuals to set challenging, ambiguous ambitious goals with measurable results. Okay, it's how you track progress, create alignment, and encourage engagement around measurable goals. So what I'm saying here is that describing your product goals using the OKR methodology framework could be a good thing. And why do I like that? Is because the OKRs comes with key results, which helps you measure your progress towards those goals. How that makes sense? And please, any questions you have, please ask them, and I would try to answer them as I go along. All right? So, looking back at our portfolio, we've moved away from a backlog of work for all this, for different projects, different programs, into what we've got a backlog, you can use the word of goals for your products. So each of these products have got goals set for it in form of OKRs, if you want to use that. And they've got some key measures, key results that you can use to measure progress towards those goals regularly. All right. And what we see is that as we begin to deliver those goals, so let's assume you've got your goals for a quarter, 3 months. If you're using Scrum in your organization, which is, and assuming you're having like a 2-week sprint, every sprint, as the Scrum team builds, delivers, and releases that product, the increment to the users, then you can test and measure that how far away are you from the goals you set for those products. All right. Bear in mind, you also want to build a long-lasting team around each product. So moving away from the idea of project teams, what you've got here are product teams. Each product that are empowered to build that product, these product teams are given it a goal, and they define how to achieve those goals. Oftentimes, I see people define goals almost very specific as features. No, and I'm going to show you examples of very good goals, the way I like to define my product goals. I'll show you an example in a minute. But what you now have here, if you've got like a product portfolio manager, what you then have now is for each of these portfolios, you've got goals that have been defined for each of these products, and we can measure against those key metrics in there. Okay, and based on whether we do meet those goals or not, the product team can make other decisions. And sometimes I've seen people also define goals for the portfolio. Okay, so across the portfolio, we want to increase maybe customer acquisition, we want to over a certain number of months. So that's also possible as well. And each of these products would also inherit those goals from the portfolio. And ultimately, whatever is experienced is discovered by building and delivering and validating will keep influencing the strategy on an ongoing basis. All right. So some examples of product goals is what I'm going to talk about now. So I've gotten 2 examples here of a product goal written using the OKR framework. So the first one on the right-hand side says, help employees view their pension contributions across all pension providers. Okay. And if you look at that objective as a goal, we've not talked about how it's going to be done. We haven't said build a dashboard, build a table. It's not in there. Just saying, helping them view their pension contribution across all pension providers. Maybe the value is to increase engagement with your pension or take more active role into contributing towards their pensions, right? And I put some 3 key results as an example here. So 95% of employees log into the platform at least every month to view their pension contribution. That's measurable. All right. You can build in features into your platform that sees people that are logging in, and then you can compare that to the number of employees that have got a pension contribution in the organization and see how well are we, towards towards that key result. The next one is number of employees actively engaging with pension providers grow by 45% month on month, which is once you've viewed your pension contribution, you can then go and talk to your pension providers, either because you want to increase your contribution, you want to pause it for, it's just about helping your employees really to take more active role in managing their pensions. This is another one. For 90% of all pension providers onboarded, an update to the pension pot should be reflected within 24 hours. Okay, when we write key results using the OKR framework, I always advise clients to make a mix of leading indicators and lagging indicators. And I think the last one could be an example of a leading indicator, which is a key measure that you can measure almost immediately as soon as the work is delivered to the customer. It doesn't take time. Lagging measures do take time. So 95% of employees log into the platform at least every month to view their pension contribution. That might take 3 months. As people start loving the product you're building, and over time you keep checking the trend, then you can see that, okay, you know what, you are trending towards that. And most times, what I find is that the OKRs are very ambitious. Sometimes you don't hit them, but you see a pattern that shows that you're trending towards those key metrics, and that's good enough. And what I found about OKRs when we use them properly in Scrum teams, in product teams, is that it helps motivate people as well. So they serve that service, which they help us motivate people. If anyone is familiar with the work of Daniel Pink, he talks about purpose, and that's purpose. Why is the work that we do important? So by having your OKRs defined as ambitious goals, also help motivate employees. Are there any questions before I'm almost wrapping up? Any questions?
We have a bunch. I think
we-
they're kind of all over the place,
Okay.
which is good. There's a variety. It's probably best to save them once you're through the content.
Okay. All right. Let's do that. Let's do that. I see there's a
Yeah.
lot in there. Yeah. All right. So let's wrap up. Got a lot of questions in there, and then just some of the things we've talked about here is for each of the products that you've got in your portfolio, you want to measure and you want to track key results. It's very important. And this is why I have preferred OKRs to define my product goals, because of the key results element of it. It helps tracking. Okay. And this is how you manage in an empirical world. You manage with goals. Okay, I'll talk about that. You manage with goals, all right? And the achievement or not, or cancellation of product goals should steer the strategy. So a good example, you've got a goal maybe to release a product to a particular market. But for some reason, that product has not been taken up in those markets. Then you can try to change your strategy based on that. Okay, and you don't have to wait for those goals, to be delivered. When you see that the metrics that you're capturing is not moving in the direction you want it to, then you can take different actions, make different decisions. Okay, someone talked about funding. Within this framework, right, each product team should be funded. Okay, and I want to talk about empowered product team. Funding is one of the things that we struggle with. Okay, funding those teams, how many people do you need for the quarter, for the year? And that is agreed and funded, and the product owner decide how best to use those funds. That is how you do it. It's a lot simpler, in my opinion, from what I've seen in the project world. All right. So based on that, you've got peak capacity, you've got 10 people funded, 20 people funded. And based on that, you can decide what is the most valuable work to deliver for the capacity that you've got, right? If there is a big, a large, you've got big goals and you think your team is so small, then you get funding for more teams to be help contribute to that same goal, to that same product, sorry. All right? So I talked about 3 to 5 key results for each objective. And as I've explained, it should be a mix of leading and lagging indicators. Leading indicators are the indicators where you can measure almost immediately. Lagging takes time. Another good example I always use is, imagine you are doing an agile transformation, right? Part of it is that you want to increase your frequency of release to your customers. That could be a leading indicator because you can measure that very quickly. If you were doing 1 release a month, aiming to do 2 releases every month, great, you can measure that. And a lagging indicator could be increased customer satisfaction. That might take time. All right, that could take 3 months or 6 months, but you start seeing customers much happier because they're getting their feedback implemented much quicker. And that's how I always explain leading and lagging indicators. And then we talked about maturity stage of each product. Your product will move through different cycles, from introduction to growth to maturity to decline. And that's something that you want to keep reassessing regularly. Quarterly, I would say at most yearly. Going beyond a year to reassess the classification of your product might be too long. All right. And the last one is product teams commit to goals and not the work. All right. And I'm going to explain it a little bit. So you could have a backlog of items, say 40 items, that the team believes would help them deliver a goal. The team would commit to that goal, the product goal. What I've found in my work, sometimes we get the goal delivered, but there's still items in your backlog, and that's okay. What we tend to do in projects, way of working, is that those are the items. There are 40 items, get it done. All right. But when you pivot to focusing on goals, the outcomes, what you want to deliver, you want to ensure 80% of transactions is using the new platform. That's a goal. Once that goal has been delivered, then you can decide not to keep working on those items in the backlog that were meant for that goal and decide what is the next goal to work towards. And that is really when you are really embracing empiricism across different layers of the organization. Okay, so let's look at some questions now. We've got about 21 minutes there about to go.
Yeah,
So
we have some time to go through some of these questions. Thank you so much for that. That was very thought-provoking there. All right, so here is a question here. How do you break the fear of managers, which prevents them from switching from traditional predictive project approaches to agile empirical approaches, which they usually consider more risky and harder to control?
Okay, so how do you break the fear of managers which prevents them from switching? So for me, what I tend to do is have an honest conversation with managers, looking at the way they're currently working. Is it working for you? Are you able to deliver value in your current way of working? And what are your biggest fears about your current way of working? Then I like to run pilots. One product, let's pilot in that environment and show what is possible. I asked the manager once to give me his most risky project that could get him fired, and worked with him to set up a team that was empowered to deliver, brought in a Scrum Master, and were able to deliver and change the mindset using goals. And once we did that, we got trust and was able to extend that to other areas of his organization. Because the fears are real. The fears are real is what I found out. So it's about running experiments in that organization, in that division, and gain some trust. And then continually try to help them deliver value. Try to give some empathy to see where their fears are coming from and run experiments. I hope that answers that question.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so innovation is one of the biggest challenges. How is innovation defined in a portfolio?
Okay, so if you look at the classification that I shared earlier on, innovation, a lot of it is done at that introduction phase. So you want to capture some new ideas, never been done before. Rather than tackling on an existing product, you then create a new product, which would be an introduction product, where there's a lot of unrealized value. Probably have a client that want to try it out, okay? And that's a product you can spend a certain proportion of your budget. So what you'll probably do is most organizations would allocate budget based on the different phases of the product. They could say we're going to spend, say, 20% on introduction. We're going to spend 40% on the growth, and then maybe spend maybe 20% on maturity. And that's how you capture innovation in your portfolio. I hope that answered that question. But introduction really are the innovative products, the bets that the organization is taking, and might scale or might not scale.
Awesome, thank you. And a follow-up question from that question is, how does DevOps help with portfolio financial planning and resource management?
I'm not sure I understand that question, but DevOps is really about how do you bring your products, you bring in support operations in with your development, enabling you to deliver quickly to your customers. So I'm not sure how you mean about how does it help with portfolio financial planning and resource management. I don't know I don't get that question, to be honest. Maybe that person can retype that
Yeah,
question.
if you can follow up with a question, Humair, that would be great. Okay, so this question, how would you agree that a product goal is accomplished little by little each sprint, where our sprint goals contribute toward the product goal? Or are these separate?
No, great question. They are not separate. The idea is your product goal. I love quarterly goals for product goals. If it makes sense in your organization, I love quarterly goals. And your sprint goals should incrementally deliver towards that product goal. Okay, so yes, I agree. The accumulation of your sprint goals should hopefully, happy path, deliver your product goal or give you enough information to make your product goal irrelevant, and then you create a new one. Okay, so yes, I hope that answers that, Aaron.
Awesome, thank you. Right, so this question from Pauline, it's about halfway through your presentation that I think this one came in. Why is the objective not time bound?
So it should be time bound. The reason why I've not said 3 months or 6 months, because it depends on your organization. I have seen product goals, OKRs monthly, I've seen quarterly, I've seen yearly. Personally, I think once your product goal starts going beyond a year, that's a lot of risk. I like quarterly goals because it just feels like a good amount of time for you to rally around, focus a team, and get something delivered.
Awesome, thank you. That makes sense. So how does the agile strategy of managing product portfolio vary when we have internal clients and users only?
Yeah, I've heard this a lot. Whether internal or external, they are still users. And we should care for them the same way we care for our external users. That'll be my answer. I've seen a lot of products built, but we abandon a lot of these practices when it's an internal product. And what you get to see is products that we spend so much money building them, but nobody uses them. So it's important to engage with these people as well, professionally within the organization, get their feedback, get them to use the product. I even think it's a lot easier when it's internal, right? Because you've got better access to them compared to when they are external customers. So I wouldn't treat that differently.
Okay, thank you. Makes sense. So how would you implement OKRs in companies that work as traditional feature factories? For
Yeah.
example, requirements coming directly from management.
Again, I wouldn't use OKRs for those. Okay. OKRs as a goal setting framework, I think has more power when you're working with, empirical way of working, not feature factories. Okay. That is where you really get the power of Scrum, of empirical way of working, or these goals. So I would not use OKRs, in such an organization. I've seen OKRs done, but I'm not sure how much value it gives in those environments. I know too many people that dislike OKRs because they feel it's just a burden, another management fad to measure their performance, and that's not the purpose of OKRs.
Awesome, thank you. All right, getting through as many of these as we can. What is the place of process management and product portfolio management? Is it just a strategy for reaching goals?
No. I don't understand that question very well, but let me try and explain it. It's a strategy for delivering value to your customers. That's it. What do you mean by process management? I don't know what that means. I don't know why. I don't want to assume what you're trying to ask me, but if you can retype that, then I will try to answer that.
Um, so I can re-ask the question. Is that
Yes,
good?
right.
All right. What is the place of process management and product portfolio management? And is it just a strategy for reaching goals?
So I'm not sure about the process management. Are you talking about how we get products to the users? Are you talking about how we build and deploy? I don't get that bit. But what I'm saying is product portfolio
I think what
management.
they're asking is, so when it comes to product portfolio management, like how does it relate to managing like processes?
Yeah, so there are
Like
different kind of
how do they
processes.
tie together?
So there are different kind of processes that you might want to talk about. I mean, there are a lot of processes we've talked about. There's a process for getting your goals defined. There's a process for getting your goals executed on by the teams, which is where you probably have a Scrum team executing on the goals. There's a process for validating. There's a process for even getting your products built, tested, deployed. So there's so many processes within what we're discussing. So that's why that process management is very vague in my opinion. But ultimately, regardless of what process, it's about how do we get value delivered to our customers.
That makes sense. Thank you. All about delivering value. Um, there was a question that came in the chat that I wanted to go back to. So this question, we might need more clarification. What if programs in the portfolio are overarching over products?
Sorry, what is what? Sorry?
What if programs in the portfolio are overarching? And then in parentheses, it says over products.
So my understanding of programs are used in organizations that heavily use projects to deliver initiatives to their products. And usually what you have is when you've got like a program of work that's related projects as put together. Okay, and projects really are just change initiatives, maybe across one application or one product. Usually you don't have products clearly defined in such organizations, and that's where I've seen program used. What we're talking about here is to have a rethink about the services and how we deliver value to our customers and start grouping those as products and then empowering those products using goals on a maybe quarterly basis, annually basis, and let those things decide how to get those goals delivered to their customers. Okay, that's the way I would differentiate them. Usually, what you get is in project programs, we define work upfront, say management, and then we bring people to the work. All right. But in a product way of working, you've got product teams that are defined and the work is brought to the people. Okay. The people are always there. They've been funded for that period. And then it's as you use your goals, the people would work on those goals, break it down into what they believe would help them deliver the goals. And you keep doing that every quarter if you've got quarterly goals.
Great, thank you. Right. There's some comments coming in the chat.
I can see
I think
nothing.
we've gone through most of these questions. I don't know if you want to circle back on the first question again. We kind of talked about that. But we had said we were going to circle back. How can we shift the traditional annual funding process for projects to a product-friendly financing? And how do we tell finance, the PMO, and executives? Touched
So
a little on that, but
that's a lot of people you want to try and convince. And I don't want to convince people. What I try to do, and there's so many ways to do it, what I try to do is to run experiments. Find one product, one business area where you've got alignment all the way from executive all the way to the team. Oftentimes, what a lot of teams struggle with is the teams are trying to use Scrum, but then they get a lot of predictive way of managing work. They get given a feature set, go build that. And they're not getting the benefits that they've been told you could get by using Scrum. So what you want is get alignment from top to bottom for a particular product, run that as a pilot, get some lesson learned around that product for that organization, and then figure out what next to do after that. You want to scale out, you want to try more products, that could help you doing that.
great, thank you. Right, awesome. This has been a really great session. Thank you, audience, for your questions. The questions have been really good. And thank you so much, Sam. I think it's about that time where we need to kind of tie things up. Are there any closing thoughts you want to leave our group with?
No, I think I was going to say thank you very much for joining. It's been a great session. I love those questions, and hopefully I can get to look at them again. And if you've got any more questions that you want to, you can contact me on LinkedIn or send me an email, and I'll be happy to connect with you to discuss
And
that.
additionally, coming up April 17th, Sam is going to be doing an Ask a Professional Scrum Trainer session. I will actually grab the link here and I will drop that here as we're closing up. One moment. Should have had it open. All right. Here is that. So that you can bring any additional questions to that session.
Yes, that would be great. I would love to see you.
And then additionally, we are also going to be having next week a session focused on product ownership and talking a little bit about product ownership and product management, talking about the capabilities tied to product ownership. It's something that I believe, since you signed up for this session, that you may be interested in. So I dropped the link to that as well. Okay, so Sam, how can people best connect with you? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is best. LinkedIn, Sam, I think it's Sam Adesoga actually on LinkedIn, but that's the link in there. Feel free to, connect on LinkedIn or email. I tend to pick those up well. Thank you very much, everybody. And
Perfect.
thank you, Lindsay.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we hope to see you again soon. Scrum on.
Thank you. Bye. Scrum on.